So Bob McKenzie is reporting that John Scott's recent trade to the Montreal Canadiens system will exempt him from the NHL All-Star Game, despite being voted into that game by the fans, and not only that, being voted captain. Now, this whole thing started about 2 months ago, and it was encouraged by a reporter with a very famous hockey blog named Greg Wyshynski. I think the title read something like, John Scott is leading the votes, and this is why he has to be on the team. So really, this whole thing was encouraged by Puck Daddy, who has a lot of power in the hockey journalistic community. I would hope, and I'll give a little credit to one of their employees, Jen Neal, who did stick up for John. After creating this mess in the first place, show me some liberal empathy and maybe run a few more articles sticking up for John Scott. Now, Don Maloney of the Arizona Coyotes simply says this trade has absolutely nothing to do with the NHL All-Star Game. Well, I'm sure we'll never get to the bottom whether that's true or not, because we'll have to get into the mind of what the Arizona Coyotes were thinking. But Bob McKenzie is also reporting that the Coyotes encouraged him to stand down, and he refused. Something that I thought would happen. And I made a prior video about it about 2 or 3 weeks ago. The thing that gets me about this, I'm not going to sit there and go on a rant that the NHL is spitting in the fans' face. I'm not going to go on a rant about democracy or any crap like that. John Scott should be in the All-Star Game for no other reason than this is a humiliation. This is a lousy thing to do. And I got news for Don Maloney or anybody else that wants to sell that line. If this has nothing to do with the NHL All-Star Game, then find a way to get him in. This is trash. This is garbage. I can only imagine how John feels right now, being on this high and this low, because the NHL refuses to face the one skill that has put more asses in more seats for hockey games in the last 100 years than any skill that will be displayed in the skills competition, and that would be fighting. They're embarrassed to admit it, but it is 150% true. And the way I see it, blue-collar hockey fans, guys that only get to go to 1 or 2 games a year, or maybe one every other year, guys that enjoy that part of the game, the people that love the NHL, the people that have supported the NHL, those type of fans, they're getting spit on too. Because I know this started out as a joke for Wyshynski and the Puck Daddy blog, but it really took on a life of its own. And I'm sure Greg will take no responsibility for that whatsoever. But after a while, the way I saw it, I saw through the joke. This would be a way, this is an opportunity not only for John Scott, but for the rest of the NHL to say goodbye to a role, and that particular role sold the game, like it or not. Much more than Gretzky's goals, much more than Patrick Kane's stick handling, much more than Adam Oates' passes. Fighting. Fighting sold the game better than any of it. And to sit there and be embarrassed from what you really collect money from is disgusting. And what's even more disgusting than that is that you would allow this man to believe, a guy who never thought he would be in this position, that he was just like everybody else and that he would be treated the same. Well, we all know that's not the case. Now, I'm sure there's going to be a lot of blowback on me making some kind of conspiracy theory. Well, the truth is, we'll never know what's true and what isn't. I am making a broad assumption. And I think it's not unreasonable. He was traded to the East so he couldn't play. And from what I understand, and I'm looking up some stuff now, and if you want to put it in the comment section below, feel free. There has been players traded prior to the All-Star game that played. So why can't John? This started off as a joke. It started to look like it was an opportunity to say goodbye to the enforcer. People like John. I got news for you. He was well-liked whatever team he played for. Whether it was San Jose or Buffalo or Chicago, people like John. That's a big reason that he's on that ballot. So maybe, just maybe, you the fan, I'm not saying go and make hashtags on Twitter. You want to change this? You make videos and you contact your favorite sports writer in your city. Since the NHL is so damn image conscious, hell, they suspended John Scott 2 years ago based on media outrage. Why don't you put pressure on your favorite reporter? Reporters started this crap. Maybe they need to help him out. Maybe Greg Wyshynski and Puck Daddy should throw this guy a bone. Contact your favorite hockey reporter and tell him to stick up for John Scott. He didn't ask for this. He got a very high honor, and he wanted to follow through with it, and I don't blame him. And now he's probably going to sit out because of the politics of the whole thing. Well, if the NHL only responds to politics, put pressure on your reporter, the guy you read, whether you root for the San Jose Sharks or you root for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Tell him this is crap. This is garbage. You should be sticking up for this man no matter how you feel about fighting. Show some empathy. John's probably not going to be in the league next year. That his role is disappearing. This is trash. And I got one last shout out to the NHLPA. Right now, as we speak on Twitter, you have a picture of John Scott being the captain of one of the divisions. Is everybody in your union stuck up for the same? Are they all equal, or is that only Patrick Kane? Is that only Joe Thornton? Maybe you should be on the phone with Bettman or any other one of these jokers that pulled this crap and say, wait a minute. I don't think one of our union members should be treated this way. This is trash. Let's make a deal. He gives up his captaincy, but he gets to play. How about this? Since he was voted in as a Coyote for that one game, he will wear a Coyote uniform. There's a bunch of things you can do. Please don't tell me it's impossible. You can add one more guy. Since the NHL doesn't play by the rules, apparently, or they like to go around them, I'm sure they can make an exception for John Scott. They made an exception to screw him. They certainly did that. Certainly they can make an exception to put him on the team. However big the roster is, how about this? +1. You don't treat people this way. This is wrong. Don't just hashtag John Scott. Tell your favorite reporter. They probably have a Twitter account. They're probably a bunch of blowhards as it is. Let them know how you feel. And maybe, just maybe, the NHL get their act together. This is an opportunity for you guys as well. You could have said goodbye to the enforcer, which you're so desperate to do, and it's going to be so good for business when they're gone. No. You took the corporate route, the screw job. You're a bunch of lowlifes.